I'm Antonis Petropoulos, and this is Ecoluminaries, the Eco Club interview series. Today, we will discuss parrot conservation with a leading expert, the Reverend Dr. Laura Kim Joyner.
We had people for the last 2 years from China boating up and down the river between Nicaragua and Honduras asking to buy eggs and chicks. So these birds are being trafficked to Asia and probably India and Arabia as well, because you will see these species of birds in pet stores there.
Around half of parrots currently live in cages. It's no wonder that people love them, they love them to death. Um, a third of parrots are threatened with extinction. Um, Among the parrots that end up in cages, some do not even make it to the cage as they die while being trapped in the tropics in South America and Africa to be sold to North America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. The lucky ones frequently outlive their owners. The largest sized species can live up to 100 years, only to starve or be euthanized when the owner dies. Others are euthanized a lot earlier, as owners find them too difficult to handle or even violent. Laws are in place in some places, like the EU, I think, that ban imports. But apparently, these laws are not very effective. And as long as possessive captive parrots is not illegal, and as long as there is demand, this will continue. The internet, unfortunately, helps illegal traders find consumers and importers at the other corner of the earth, while most parrot species can still be legally traded under the convention, the CITES. So it only takes a falsification of documents to trade banned parrot species. But I should stop here as I'm not the expert, and I will now introduce the expert, Dr. Laura Kim Joyner.
Hello there. Thank you for that introduction.
Dr. Joyner has worked in avian conservation in Latin America for over 35 years as a wildlife veterinarian. The beauty and the power of the people and parrots there drove her to be in solidarity with them and to witness and share their struggle. To be a better partner in promoting the health of individual beings and biotic communities, Laura Kim became an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, a certified trainer in nonviolent communication, and a member of the 2-year Unitarian Universalist Entrepreneurial Program. These skills and experiences aid her in promoting the health of humans, for without the flourishing of people, the parrots do not stand a chance, and without the flourishing of life on Earth, humans will live narrower and less vibrant lives or no lives at all. Dr. Joyner is also the co-founder of the conservation organization One Earth Conservation. Thank you for joining us. It's an honor to interview someone like you who is from the front lines of conservation. So I wanted to go to the very beginning. What was that first attracted you to parrot conservation, and when did you decide that this was going to be to become a full-time job or a vocation for you?
Okay, thank you again for having me here and for that lovely introduction. I often get that question, why parrots? It started off with just birds as a whole. When I was a really young child, I dreamt in birds. I just wanted to be with birds. I wanted to be around birds. I don't know where that came from. And then when I was in elementary school, I don't know, 7 or 8, I had already been collecting books on how to care for birds in captivity, even by that age. And I saw a show about the Eskimo curlew going extinct. It was a cartoon show years ago, back in the 60s. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help birds not go extinct. And the reason why it drifted towards parrots was because they're the most endangered group of birds on the planet. And so that's where a lot of the work is. And of course, they're really fun birds too. So that's part of it. So I just followed the need of what group of birds needed the most work. And I would say, like you said, it's more of an advocate. It's more of a calling. I don't even get paid all that well, right? So it's not really a full-time job as much as it is a more than full-time calling to work with parrots in conservation.
I understand. So over these years, have you seen the situation of parrots somewhat improve or rather worsen? And in what ways?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's sort of throughout all this interview, I'll always be saying it depends on the species, it depends on the region, depends on the culture, depends on many, many things. So there's like 400 species of parrots. So you can't really say about specifically, but I would say in the 35 years, it has worsened greatly. It's just a disaster. We're losing our parrots. I tell the story of Guatemala when I first worked there. Maybe there were 50 to 100,000 yellow-naped Amazons in the countryside, but the 100% poaching over decades, we're down to 400 birds maybe in the whole countryside. And this is a country that still has that species. Others do not have it or have lost other species, such as the macaw. So it's greatly worsened, and it seems to be getting more and more desperate as the years go by. Having said that, there are some success stories in areas where there are resources and really targeted specific conservation. They've been able to bring the bird back, even reduce the poaching in some areas. And what has improved in parrot conservation, we were one of the first parrot conservation organizations working 35 years ago. And we were all by ourselves, and people said, "What? Protect parrots? What?" And now it's like it's in the culture. There are many people working with parrots that have awareness about this. They're working in research and conservation, maybe because it's gotten so desperate. And the people who live where the parrots are going, "Oh my gosh, we're about ready to lose our parrots." So there's a real huge resource right there, because we have so many people involved and greater awareness in the scientific community. So in that way, conservation has gotten easier. And again, we've been able to protect certain parrots in Australia and New Zealand, the Spix macaw. They're able to release in Brazil. Of course, it's endangered because of the collectors, but now the collectors and the scientific community is helping to bring that back. So it's a mixed bag, but generally it's really scary for most of our birds. Over 50% of the parrot populations are in decline, and over a third of them are endangered.
Every day during the breeding season of the scarlet macaw, the people of Mabita prepare to patrol the thick pine forests of the Honduran Mosquitia.
In 2014, we were able to document that every nest in this core conservation area of Mabita was poached. Nothing escaped the illegal wildlife trade. It was very disheartening.
Poaching is the #1 threat to the scarlet macaw, largely driven by a domestic and international pet trade. It's estimated only 1,500 scarlet macaws are left in Central America. About 500 of them live in this one region of Honduras.
So in the places where the situation has worsened, how do you explain it? What is the underlying reasons? Is it social reasons? Is it the effect on the environment, industries encroaching on the environment, poverty, civil strife? What is the main
What are
problem?
the main threats? And again, you have to kind of go parrot by parrot and area by area.
See.
And there's been some papers on that. And the two biggest reasons are the wildlife trade. And where I work in the Americas, that's usually the #1 cause. The parrots would be doing sort of okay if we didn't trade them. And so but also habitat destruction is up there. That's certainly up. And then when you put the two together, that's just when it just go, how are we going to even release birds? There is nowhere left to release them, to bring them back. But that's sort of the symptom causes. What's fueling that trade? Well, it would be the demand for parrots as pets. That's the cause. And then we could even say it's colonialism and extraction economies that say we have the right to pull resources out of one country and bring them into another because of our desire and our demand, and not having local autonomy to say we don't want to lose our parrots. because of the economic market. So then we could say it's the economic system under which we all live that allows us to cause harm to other habitats, other peoples, and other parrots. It allows us to do this to the parrots. And then we might even say deeper that it's our disconnection and sense of separation of humans from all of life that allows us to be victims, co-victims in a market economy that extracts and harms.
I see. So I understand that the demand is a major problem that
Yes.
creates supports the wildlife trade. So education is probably needed in terms of lowering this demand as far as the citizens are concerned, not the even, for example, the fashion industry that may use exotic birds. Maybe they need to be educated as well, like the fur trade that have moved to fake fur. But for example, in order to limit the supply, would Mexico's solution of a licensing system, I believe they have a wildlife trade licensing system where they are allowed to catch some a quota of wildlife, including parrots, and trade them with legal means. Is this a solution, or does it help? Does it actually facilitate the illegal trade?
Yeah, and again, depends on the country, the culture, right? So,
Okay.
but about Mexico, I have to admit I was a little confused with that question because the way I understood it, Mexico has a total ban on any
Total
trade in parrots, capture,
Okay.
breeding, and captivity, selling them of their native 22 species, not of like lovebirds and cockatiels. And I
Okay.
double checked that with some colleagues of mine in Mexico the last couple of days, and that's true. So Mexico does not have a partial ban. It's 100%. And that's a real interesting country because there's been a lot of data done on when they closed that down completely 100%. And they've been able to document that 100% a ban has decreased the illegal trade in parrots. A paper just came out this year. And so they were able to say it, the ban didn't just make it all go underground and increase the demand and have more birds poached. That's just Mexico. So we do need to look at every country and look at the human dimensions and what's causing the extraction, what's causing the problems, and go, will a ban work or won't it work? Will it backfire in our faces? And one thing that I know in the various countries I even work in some countries where it's legal to trap parrots. In Guyana and Suriname, it's very unusual that that's allowed in some countries, is that the illegal and the legal traffic mixes up in this whole general trade, and it's hard to distinguish one from the other. And so some people feel that a ban might diminish, the legal trade, and it might make it harder for birds to sneak through the legality. That's the general sense of it, because many of these countries don't have the capacity to support their laws. And so there's some argument to say that a complete ban would be helpful. But if you have a government that can't follow through, then what is that going to do? And then if you continue to have the demand, I work in countries where it's been illegal to trap parrots for decades. And the international demand and the prices for like macaws continue to go up. And it just makes the extraction pressure greater and greater to overcome any country's ability to stop the trade. So it's really hard to say if we should have a ban or not. But let's take it from the parrot's perspective. What does the parrot say? What does the parrot want? And the parrot would say, don't trap me, don't trade me. I have families, I'm smart, I suffer. We just did a huge paper on trapping guidelines for the country of Suriname, and we went through all the literature to talk about all along the chain in the trade where parrots have a chance to suffer and where their welfare is low. And it's consistent all the way through. We can't do it in a way that is good for them. And so in from an animal welfare standpoint, it's not in the bird's interest to do 100%, to not have it be 100% ban.
I see. And since you brought up the viewpoint of the parrot, that is a very high intelligence animal, there is the argument that, like higher primates, they should have some sort of legal personhood. Do you believe they should be afforded special protection, parrot rights, animal rights? Is that
To do that.
possible?
Yeah, so there's a lot of strategies to improve the welfare of wild animals. And some people take that strategy, a legal strategy of legal personhood. And so I'm going to answer this in a couple different ways. One thing, we've gotten really much more knowledgeable about parrots' behavior, their physiology, as you say, the actual intelligence. We know in some tests they outsmart college students. And they equivalate some of them to a 4 or 5-year-old. And the way the studies on their brain and their brain structure and how they use coevolution to become a lot like primates, and the way they have neurally dense brains that, depending on the great ape you're talking about, humans or chimps or gorillas, the parrots can often out-test them, out-socialize them. They can out-communicate in many ways. So we know they're very intelligent and very complex. And so if we don't want chimps or gorillas or whales in captivity because of the sense, and even the studies show us that the greater the cognitive ability of a wild animal, the greater their suffering in captivity. There's been studies on that. So we would say if we're going to ban whales and chimps, and if we don't want to put human children in cages at the age of 4 and 5, it would make sense that it's not in the best interest of the birds to do the same thing to them. And then, of course, do we want to make it legal to say they have personhood? Depends on the country whether that kind of argument is going to work. Probably what would work best, and we're about ready to kick off an international campaign on this, is just that people be aware at an emotional level about the lives of parrots. And then to have the cultural expectations change, that it's not okay to have birds in cages, just as we did the Save the Whale campaign, and we were trying to get cetaceans out of aquariums and zoos. That's probably more effective than actually doing the legal battle. I don't know if it's more effective, but it's another approach. It's just let people know what parrots are saying and what they want, and let's change the cultural expectations so we reduce the demand. That's a 50, 100-year project. So we have to do Band-Aid conservation in the meantime, so we have some remnant population still there for when the demand lessens.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps the personhood argument should better to reduce demand in the current owners who have captive parrots. If they start to feel bad about having imprisoned such a clever being, and if the requirements for keeping a parrot in a cage become more stringent, perhaps this could make an incentive for people to hand in those parrots. This brings me to my next question. What happens to this half of the world global parrot population, which is imprisoned, is captive? Is it possible to release them in sanctuaries? Can they be truly rehabilitated, relearn the instincts, the ones that have been born in captivity? Can they learn to fly, to find food? What is your knowledge, experience from this?
It is certainly a mess. What do we do with the birds that are already in captivity? And every parrot is individual. Some birds might do better in some situations than others. Some parrots are in love with humans and will never mix with another bird. Others just get no benefit from a human relationship, and they need to be with other birds. So we take it on a bird by bird basis. Now, if you have a parrot that's not in a country where they naturally free fly, you can't let them go. They don't belong in Greece. They don't belong in Europe. Now, they are there because people have let them go or the birds have escaped. But you do not release birds into an area where they're not native. Also because it's not good for the bird, because it takes training and learning. There's a whole science behind training parrots so that they have the best chance to survive. So you don't want to just open up the door and let your bird out, especially if your bird loves you and is attached to you and has a sense of the family. So whenever we work with people that feel bad about their birds in captivity, we just ask them about their bird and their family life. And and help them make the best decision. But you can't just let them go. And the regulations say you can't just ship them back to their country where they're from. You know, we don't allow it's rare that is allowed, and it's very expensive. And we also don't want to move parrots around the world because they bring diseases for each other and for other wildlife. So it's really hard to get the permits to move birds around. Now, in countries of origin, that's where I usually work. You know, you're all the time getting confiscated birds or pet birds that have been relinquished. And it's amazing how some birds really can be released. It takes time, some birds, and there's an art to it, and you want to release them in groups, and you want to release them into safe areas where they're not going to get trapped or hunted, and you want to release them in areas where there's education and awareness. But people do it. People do release confiscated parrots back into the wild, and we do everything we can to release every single bird that we find that can be released to get them back in the wild blind.
Okay, so are there any large sanctuaries? And in that respect, what is the role of zoos? Also, in terms of assisting this, but also in terms of funding conservation. Do you consider them allies or foes in terms of creating demand and showing the wrong example also to young visitors, because they see parrots in cages, so they say, "Mommy, please buy me a parrot."
Right.
So, you know.
Who doesn't want a parrot in their home? I totally
Mhm.
get that. One thing is your first question was about sanctuaries.
Yes.
At least in the United States, I'm going to imagine certainly in the countries where I work, it takes so much money to take care of birds in captivity at a higher welfare level that our sanctuaries are just overfull in the United States. You can find places to turn the birds in, but usually what sanctuaries try to do is rehome just died, and you don't know what to do with the parrot. So you can call a sanctuary and they will try to find someone who will adopt your parrot, because we're just overfull of people who don't want parrots. And so that's a problem with the sanctuary, but you can find them. And if you really, really want a parrot and you want to help the parrot, adopt one that has been given up. I mean, that's a way to do that. Now, zoos are complicated. They're complicated, and there have been studies done on, do zoos really help with conservation? So one thing is, zoos decide where their money goes. Some are public zoos, but they're generally driven by funders or by a board of directors or something. It's not the countries of origin that decide how they want the money and how much they need to protect their parrots. It's people from collecting birds from outside of their country. So we're a little suspicious of funders, any funders, not just zoos, that are dictating where money goes, because it's not their country. They're sort of making decisions, out without including often the people there. Zoos, of course, have been part of the system of collecting and harming wildlife. We know that. That's just sort of the history of zoos. There have been studies to say, do zoos do more education and awareness, or are they really there for entertainment? And many people go for entertainment, to do something with their children. And then does it do more harm to show the birds in captivity versus free flying? So there's a mixed message with zoos. There's definitely a mixed message. Having said that, some zoos they've really changed. They're really trying. They're trying to do more conservation. They're trying to be more ethical about it. But they have a 200, 300-year history of not being there for the wildlife, but being there to produce money for the zoos and have an entertainment. I've worked in several zoos trying to help them with their conservation and consulting. So I know that there's good people there trying really good things, and they've had some success. At the same time, I personally will not go visit a zoo. I do not believe we should be showing animals in captivity unless we absolutely have to put them in captivity for their own welfare. And it's not clear that zoos, ethically can consistently do that across all their many species, although they certainly are trying these days.
So is there a chance for zoos to be transformed into rehabilitation, into animal hospitals, parrot hospitals, sanctuaries? That was my point in the question. Could they do this, or do they don't have the space to to
They
host?
don't have let's say in Europe, for
Yes,
instance, or in
yes.
North America, they can't. No, they can't take in relinquished pets.
Mhm,
They don't. It's just like the sanctuaries are full and it costs money and it's expensive, and
mhm,
they can't do that. They just don't have the finances for the hundreds and thousands of parrots that would
mhm.
come in if they did that.
And so if zoos do not have the funds, and who should fund uh, ethically also, because zoos are a question mark, who should fund parrot conservation ideally? Ecotourists or big companies? Would you mind being funded, for example, by fossil fuel company or a defense company? Um, what is your position?
Let's say the funding is a mess in conservation. We work for a nonprofit. So when people have disposable income, like individual donors, where does it come from? It comes often from extraction economies, from their stocks and bonds, from companies that are hurting the world. So we know we're accepting money that's been tainted. We know that, right? So whether it's got the oil Exxon name on it or not, we know we've got money that's been part of the harm. There's no way around that system. Also, many of our funders in Europe and many other places, or Arabian, the money is being dictated how it will be spent by rather wealthy or privileged people outside of the countries of origin. So basically, and in my case, I can say white because I come out of Europe. These white people are deciding how brown people spend their money on their parrots. And they get to choose because they're the ones that have got all the money. And people like us in our nonprofits, we have to meet all these objectives. So they'll just give us a little bit of money, and it's nowhere close enough. There's not enough money out there in conservation to even begin to save our species. It doesn't exist. We're all fighting for just a little pot of money from funders, and grants. There's not enough. There's not enough money because what conservation has to do is we have to change the economic system. We have to change the cultural expectations, not only in the local community, but in the demand market. So there's not enough money anywhere to do all that work. Now, if the governments decided to cut their military budget, if they could, I know it's hard, but as an example, 5%, there would be enough to do this work. If people in the United States had 1/10 the number of dogs and cats and birds, if all that money got diverted to conservation, we would have enough. There are enough resources in the world to bring our birds back and do the education and awareness, but we aren't diverting the funds in an ample enough way, and there's very little money in conservation. So we are really hurting. Having said that, some amount of money that we do get from grants and zoos, we get money from everywhere. We can actually save a bird's life today. We can help pay for education and medicine for the children that are taking care of the parrots. It is saving lives. But what we need is enough money to completely restructure of our society and relationship to nature. It's something that's called transformative conservation. And that takes the participation of many, many people and a very long-term, integrated, intense program to do that, not just some little organization like ours working with parrots in the Americas.
Mm-hmm. So how would ecotourism and voluntourism and volunteerism even fit into this regenerative conservation model?
So,
please.
Yeah, go ahead. Please finish.
Because there are also ethical doubts about, for example, volunteerism and volunteering stealing local jobs if the volunteers are not given complex tasks or they do not bring value-added knowledge, etc., etc. But as you explained, you don't have the funds. So what's the problem with people coming and assisting with their small grants and donations and in kind sometimes? What do you think?
What do we think about ecotourism?
Yes.
We in parrots, there hasn't been a comprehensive study on what works in parrot conservation or why we think it works. One is there hasn't been the money to to test it proactively, or even retroactively to say, does the parrot population go up? Are the people doing better? How did their lives improve? How did their jobs go up? We don't have studies on that. We're just now putting out a survey this year to try to see what works, what doesn't work. So we don't know the answer on ecotourism across the line and all these different parrot projects, what's working. I believe it can be really helpful in some areas. In other areas, it will not work. Well, I work in Honduras where you don't want to go there. I have to go in with the military. So that's not conducive to ecotourism, right? It's not stable enough of an area. Or there aren't the resources to keep even the backpacker tourists healthy and well. So it's not going to work everywhere. And then can we get in enough income that will actually offset the trapping and the international demand that keeps rising the prices? You know, how can ecotourism fight with income enough across enough families in enough area to actually, you know, do all the work that it needs to done? It doesn't mean you shouldn't try. It doesn't mean it can't work in some areas, but it's not the magic solution. Nothing in parrot conservation is the magic solution. We just have to try everything and see what works in one area. Now, for instance, in Nicaragua, where we're leading a pilgrimage, a parrot pilgrimage in December, that seemed to be the best opportunity to have ecotourism offset the problem to the parrot and the wildlife. One, it's already a huge tourist destination. Two, it's like the safest place, one of the safest places in Nicaragua. Three, it's got a whole system of guides that have been set up to deal with this international tourists that come there. Lots of hotels, lots of infrastructure, safety, beauty. It's an incredibly beautiful island. And the eco guides are our main conservationists there that work with the parrots. So it's got everything that could develop ecotourism to really help protect this island's parrots. But then between COVID and the civil unrest, we haven't been able to get that going. So would ecotourism really work there? We haven't been able to play it out. One area where we could say that tourism helps, Costa Rica's been fairly successful. They still have a lot of poaching. Their birds are still in trouble. They need to be really careful, but that's helped. And the presence of internationals doing conservation there and being tourists, it has helped. You know, people have really helped. Yes, they use Earth's resources. Yes, they're killing the planet with the jet fuel. Maybe they're taking jobs away from others, but they're also contributing to jobs. A group that I work in Guatemala has tons of interns come in for their veterinary program and their wildlife rehabilitation programs. That money supports the wildlife rehabilitation of those people coming in and wanting to put their hands on monkeys and on parrots. So again, every area is different and we have to try, and we try ecotourism in all our projects, just to see if there's any way that this could happen. Now, I just said that Honduras was really very kind of dangerous and complicated to go to in La Mosquitia. Yet one of our partners is developing, we built an ecotourist center years ago in this place, and they're trying to develop scientific tourism, where universities and students come in and they learn all about wildlife, and their income of paying people and guides actually provides an income to the local villages. And so we're doing that, we're pursuing that. And I bet it is going to be successful as long as the civil unrest can stabilize there.
Yes, safety is a major issue.
In some areas, some areas.
But safety, again, is a result of political tensions and with a result of poverty. And
The Abu Pani Project, which means scarlet macaw in mosquito, started with the small village of Mabita in 2010.
I was somewhat startled to hear the people here saying, we don't see our parrots anymore, and we would be interested in seeing if we can protect them.
Thanks to funders like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it's the largest community-patrolled parrot conservation area in Latin America. The patrols have significantly reduced poaching. The patrols that began in Mabita are now taking place in 6 different communities throughout the Mosquitia.
We banned them because, one, we can tell one chick from the other, and two, if the poachers take them, we know they're our birds and where they came from. So Any birds that in this area, anywhere in the world that have a band on their right side with our number, there are birds and they should come back.
If I understood well, reading about your tour in December in Guatemala, in Nicaragua, sorry, you're actually promoting an eco tour which is being organized by the community. You're not organizing yourselves.
No.
You're not a tour operator, obviously. So, based on your efforts and the conversations and communication with the community, what are the key challenges they are and you together with them facing in terms of setting up and promoting this this startup, this new ecotour service?
And I think their biggest challenges has been the civil unrest in Nicaragua and COVID.
Okay.
If they can get beyond that, this group is just amazingly gifted and they know what they're doing. And I guess the other big challenge would be getting the word out that it is a great thing to come here and do parrot tours. I mean, it's a great place to do monkey and bird tours. I mean, it's got a lot going on there, but that's just going to take time to get that word out, and it's going to take partners, and it's going to take people like yourself helping to get the word out. And so word grows and people go, oh, this is a great place to go. They have several packages for parrots. You get to climb a nest tree. You get to see wild parrots. You get to count parrots. You get to see a volcanic island. You get to go snorkeling. You get to go birding. You get to do all this great stuff. And so I would say time and partners, international partners that can help get the word out.
I see. And in terms of training, self-training of the guides, the ecotour guides, who will do the actual, are they ornithologists? Because it's a community. Do they have the knowledge? How does it work out?
In particularly in Nicaragua, the people who are leading the conservation, they are trained eco guides. So they're kind of I don't want to say a level up, but they're the trained people that are leading the conservation and the eco guide. They also hired the local community members to help do all that. So we sort of have the college trained, experienced bird people running it, but then they definitely involve because they live within the same community where they're guiding. And so they involve all the people in being part of the program. And, you know, when we talk about jobs, I think one of our most successful pieces that we've done in the short term for our conservation projects is to hire people. It changes people. They need money. They need respect. They love the teamwork. They go, oh, I can get paid to love parrots and work outdoors. I don't have to trap them. I don't really like trapping them anyway. And so the infusion of money changes people, and it changes their children, and it changes their family members. But how can one conservation group hire 20 villages worth of people to stop the poaching? How do we have the ability to change an economic system that's based on extraction and colonialism? Well, we can't. The world needs to change. We need the governments to not be less corrupt. We need the drug traffickers to not be there, you know, paying people more money than we can for doing the parrots. But in the short term, paying people to work. So if eco guides don't work, what we say is, for what the amount of money it would take to hire one ranger in the United States, we can hire rangers in 11 communities to protect the parrots on the same salary.
I see.
So it makes so much economic sense to, maybe we can't bring eco guides there, but we can hire them to protect our world's parrots.
And as you said, it's realistic to retrain or to hire ex-poachers to become ecotour guides. Has it happened? Have you seen it happening?
Of course, all over, and not just eco guides, but we also mean conservationists. They're some of the best parrot people out there because they love parrots in their own way. Not all of them. Some are purely mercenary and business people, but generally they love the hunt. They love being outdoors. They want to be on a team, and they go, oh, I can make even more money being a conservationist, or maybe similar than trapping the birds. So I'm going to go join the conservationists. And I would say in most of our projects, our people are ex-poachers. Most of them have, or their family's gotten some income from that. And they convert pretty easily to wanting to be conservationists because they come from that outdoors orientation towards birds.
I see. I just want to say, because I thought it before and I didn't want to forget it. The point you said about the scientific tourism is also very interesting, because perhaps you could get some tours to be accredited for university students who study ornithology, and they could get credit by participating as volunteers even on this tour. It's a good idea.
I don't really know much how it works. My partners in Honduras are working with only 1 or 2 universities, and there's money involved. You know, these people can pay, the students can pay, and it helps the local communities quite a bit, and it probably helps raise money for the universities as well. So, and there's so much scientific work that needs to be done. So that could well be a helpful way to go.
I see. You raised the point of that we need to change the way we treat nature and animals, because it affects us. I mean, the regenerative conservation, changing the system, the economic system. And you wrote a book, which is Prion, a futuristic fable of parrots, pandemics, and promise makers. What is the key message? Do you mean that if we don't change our ways, we'll get more pandemics? All the zoonotic diseases are directly related. Is some sort of nature's revenge or a defense against what we're doing to her?
It's a medical thriller, right? It's a science medical thriller. Is that the parrots carry a contagion that it could wipe out humanity? And so yes, it's about that. That's truly the case. But what I think it's mostly about is raising the awareness of how much trouble our parrots are in, and that it's, you know, Antonis, it's hopeless, basically. You know, how can we change the economic system in time? We're losing our parrots. We're losing our planet Earth. You know, we're down to remnants and catastrophe. So what can we do? Why would we do it? So I wrote this book to talk about the incredible possibility that's in people who make a commitment and fall in love with life around them and with each other, and it's solidarity at all costs. We call it unconditional solidarity. It's sort of the theme of the book. And they see parrots as having inherent worth and dignity, and they commit their lives to helping those people and those parrots where they live. And it's, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. And I'm not going to tell you either. You have to go get the book, but it's about, I'm both optimistic and fatalistic. You know, Antonis, there's no way we're gonna turn this around, and yet the seeds are there that we could, and that book is about that possibility. And hopefully, it's a little bit of fun too.
I'm sure, and I plan to read it. Sorry, I didn't have time to read it yet. But
well, it's my first shot at a novel, so if you can't get through it, it's okay.
I wanted two last questions for young people that will be watching this or reading the interview, and will become inspired, but may have two practical questions. First, what can they do? What action can they take if they really want to be interested in improving parrot conservation, for example? I mean, what course of study should they go and volunteer first? And the other one is, do they need to be heroes? Because what you're doing in war zones, in civil wars, we're avoiding criminal gangs, poachers, is dangerous. So what skills do they have? Or will they become heroes along the way out of necessity? I mean, are you afraid? Were you afraid in your time with the parrots in this 35 years so far?
Yes, when I first started, I was just sort of a suburban middle class person from North America, and I went to Guatemala and lived there during the Civil War, and I was scared all the time. I was not used to that. I was scared of everything. I came back with post-traumatic stress syndrome. I think we understand that now. I was just terrified, and I didn't have the tools to deal with it. And so, what gave me the tools for that? Well, it's sort of like, maybe this is what it has to. Not everybody moves to a war zone, so not everybody does that. But we all take risks, right? It's all pretty scary out there. We're gonna have enough money. Is somebody gonna like us? Am I going to stay healthy if I go somewhere? And so I understand we all have risk. And what helps develop the hero in all of us is to be open to the beauty and tragedy of the world around you. I mean, that's actually a practice we can all do, is to be so swept away by the beauty, so in love with the animals and the people that you're working with, that it grows your commitment, and it changes your neural wiring a little bit over the years. So you go, oh, that's not so scary, I can risk that. Or that's not so scary, I can risk that. And it gives you tools to have the resilience to do that kind of work, to offer the commitment. And so I would say it was just over time that I was able to become a little less anxious in the traveling and being present and just being so in love with the people and the birds. That's what sort of helped me do those areas. But you don't have to go to risky areas. There's so much you can do just where you are. And of course, one of the easiest things to do is don't buy a parrot. Just don't have a parrot at home. And if you do have one, take really good care of it. They live to be 100 years, like you said. Let's take care of them. You can spread the message. There's a lot of education and awareness. We're going to be doing an international campaign, like Save the Whales, and there's all kinds of ways to get involved with that. Social media, putting on presentations. There's all things you can do. You can generally, this is very diffuse and it may not be very rewarding, is reduce your consumerism overall. Because even if you're not buying a parrot, the more we consume, it's taking out of the parrot's habitats. And so just, we want to live low on the scale as much as we can to help our earth stay alive and stay well. If you have disposable income, invest wisely. Don't invest in companies that are taking out the forest where the parrots live and where the people live. Don't just do socially wise investing. And that's a thing now. You can certainly do that. And also know that no matter what you do, even a little change of behavior, or even if you're helping children instead of parrot children, it's all connected. The health is all connected. So no matter who you're helping all of us. And maybe parrots isn't your thing. So go help children or go help butterflies, and be aware that the domination power over society is at the root cause of all these beings suffering. And so be aware of that and share the story. And let's try to change our societies and the way we live in time, so we don't lose everything, or so we don't lose any more than we have to.
I understand.
They should contact us. Get on Facebook, email us. We're pretty good at trying to connect people to what it is they can do.
I see. And I understand that your experiences are interacting and have been supported and help you also to develop some spiritual beliefs. If you want to talk about it, you are a reverend of the Unitarian Universalist Church, and you also have training in nonviolent communication. Does it? It surely combines with the ecological approach to dealing with nature and also solving problems and conflict resolution, finding solutions. Yes,
has helped a lot. The number one cause of conservation failure is conflict and lack of interpersonal relationships, more than lack of funding or climate change. It's how we get along with each other. So any ways that we can develop organizational intelligence helps our conservation. And so being able to work with people in a non-judging sort, holding them responsible, but in a non-judging way, helps people work together better. And it also helps you maybe not be as hard on yourself and on others. Because, you know, working in conservation, you're dealing with people that you're angry with all the time. And they're irritated and they're not doing their job and they're killing people and shooting at people you love. There's no getting around that. And so anger can help motivate us, but there's also a resource of accepting that this is the way humans are. And in a Zen paradox, it allows us to have even greater energy to stay engaged. So I think for me, nonviolent communication helps with an acceptance of why people do things and why you do things has helped a lot. You know, it helps me be present with poachers, helps me be present with consumers, be present with myself. And to not just give up and run away and say it's too hard, going, oh, I can find some energy by connecting to the beauty and the tragedy of the human and the parrot experience. And so that has helped a lot. And Unitarian Universalism is all about accepting people where they are and having resilience and being able to connect to what is common in our lives with other people and with other parrots. And also both of those groups provide community. And I can't do this alone. That's one thing I learned coming back from the Civil War in Guatemala is I needed a community that could help me hold the beauty and tragedy. And so that's where the work with congregations has helped me, because we can't do it alone.
I see. Okay, it's been an honor and a pleasure to discuss these important issues with you, and I hope things improve for the local communities, the parrots, and wildlife, and of course we don't get any more pandemics, and nature stops having to defend herself. Let me remind our viewers that you are organizing this very interesting tour. The dates are please remind me, in December
10th through the 13th, and it's all kind of eco-tours. It's counting parrots and learning about parrot conservation, and it also has a spiritual grounding essence to it as well. Okay,
we'll add the links and the information next to the interview. Will you be there? People will get to meet you also?
Yes, yeah, I'm going to walk around.
So that's one more reason to choose this eco-tour. So thank you again. And we remain at your disposal for promoting your work, and especially these interesting eco-tours. Hope you organize more.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And do let me know how the reception is and if there's anything we can do in turn for this exposure.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Nani wapi sama vita vilara Apura wapali sama vita vilara Nimi wari lawi sama vita vilara